The James Show Podcast.
You probably never heard her before unless you're terminally online like myself. Her name is Chloe Cole, and I'm not going to give you the background on her. I'm going to let her give the background because she is a public speaker now and does a pretty good job herself. So, Chloe Cole, welcome to the James Show. What brings you to Texas, Chloe?
Thank you for having me here. Yeah, I am here in Texas primarily for a few university events. I speak a lot on the transgender issue as well as other cultural issues, and my absolute favorite place to do that is on college campuses. So I've spoken, I think at Texas State University, at UT of San Antonio, and I was actually supposed to have an event on campus at TCU, but they don't like my message very much, it would seem.
All right, so why would someone listen to you on such a touchy topic as detransitioning?
Because I'm actually somebody who has gone through the process of a gender transition medically, socially, living through that lifestyle in every way, and then coming back out of it after realizing the harm that was done to me. And now I've become a spokesperson for this community of thousands, potentially dozens or hundreds of thousands of people across the world who have personally been harmed by this at very young ages.
All right.
I was a teenager when they put me through every single one of these treatments. I was very young.
Yeah, let's do the uncomfortable part here. And the reason why I wanted to have you on right now is there's a lot of moms in carpool lines about to pick up their kids. It's 3:06, you know? And so this is who I want to hear this. Moms, dads, you've got to listen up to this. Let's go back and tell your story starting when you're 13.
Yeah, so I was about 11 when I got my first cell phone, and especially the older I got and as I started move into puberty, I started to become a lot more of a tomboy. I started to align a lot more with the boys my age, with my male peers, with my brothers, and I related to them a lot more. And it was something that I actually took a lot of pride in, being a tomboy, because it was something that set me apart. It meant that I was strong. It meant that I was adventurous. But I also had really a lot of normal teenage insecurities, especially around my developing body. And as I started to use social media, I was learning about a group of kids who had very similar struggles to me. But they gave themselves a special label. They called themselves transgender. And through this lifestyle and through this label, they seemed to become so happy and feel like it seemed like they were they started to have this feeling of becoming more whole. So I started this feeling of questioning eventually became a decision that I made. I decided at the age 12 that I was actually a young man, and that was why I was more boyish and why I didn't feel pretty and why I didn't feel very feminine. And so I told my mom and dad about these feelings that I had, and that I didn't want to be their daughter anymore, but their son. And they didn't really know exactly how to respond. It was kind of an emotional roller coaster for them, but they wanted to both be cautious of my age and of my maturity, or lack thereof at the time, because they knew I still very much was just their little girl, right? But they also wanted to get to the bottom of where this was coming from exactly, so they had me start seeing a therapist. What they didn't expect, though, was that what therapy really comprises of, what it really means to a lot of doctors when they're dealing with gender-confused young patients, it doesn't mean actually diving into the issues that these kids have. It means just saying yes, yes, yes to everything. Yes, we are going to call you by the opposite sex. We're going to call you whatever you want, by your preferred name, by your preferred pronouns, and we are going to have your mom and dad do the very same. We are going to have them say yes as well, no matter what they may think right now. And my mom and dad were getting frustrated because I was going to therapy, but I was not getting better emotionally at all. I also expressed to them that I felt like nothing was happening really in these appointments, but they were never really followed up with about what was actually talked about between me and the psychologist. So they decided to talk to the doctors themselves, and ask them about why I was experiencing this confusion, whether it might be a phase or not. And what they were told was that this is life or death for your kid. This is not a phase. this is a fundamental part of who she is, and you are going to accept your daughter as your son right now, because if you don't say yes, if you don't call her, if you misgender her, if you don't say yes to her receiving treatment as early as possible, that could lead to an early unfortunate death for her. Your child might just take her own life if you don't do so. And that is a lie that doctors leverage over parents who often do not have any other resources, who do not have any outside knowledge or alternative resources. They are told that the life of their child is at stake. And they repeated this lie to my mom and dad several times over and over and over again, especially as the treatment path became more and more invasive. They really were scared for my life.
When did the hormones start?
The whole medical process started pretty quickly, actually, like within the first, I would say roughly half a year of me ever seeing a therapist at all. So very, very expedited.
And how old were you?
I was 13. I started the puberty blockers, which is like a chemical castration agent they use to stop the puberty of perfectly healthy children now. It was about halfway through my 8th grade year, and then a few months after that, I was put on weekly injections of testosterone, and at 15 years old, I underwent surgery. I had a radical double mastectomy to remove my breasts, and that ended up being a major turning point when I realized just how much damage this was causing to me. And I started reflecting a little bit on what it really means to be an adult, and the fact that I was not too far from 18 years of age, and I would have to start thinking not just about what kind of college do I want to go to, what kind of career would I want to have, but what is it that I want in my personal life? And I realized I want to have kids one day. I want to get married. I really want to fulfill a very feminine role. And I might not ever be able to do any of those things if I continue going down this path. So I made the decision at 16 years old to stop transitioning. And I came across a community of people who were in very similar situations to me, who also had detransitioned. And over the years, I've met hundreds of others in person, online, and our stories just go to show just how harmful this really is. The fact that this is not for children, really. I frankly don't believe that this is any way to live for anybody, and for any doctor to do this to anyone is deeply, deeply abusive.
So was there an event that made you sort of hit rock bottom and decide to come out of it? Or was it a gradual process? How did you turn this around when so many other people don't?
It was a very gradual process, and I really did hit rock bottom. I thought I wasn't even going to make it to 18 years old. I thought I genuinely wanted to end my own life because of the effects of all of the procedures. But thank God I've made it to 21. I had my birthday just a few months ago, and I've realized that in spite of everything I've lost, God still has a plan for me, and I still have so much to live for. And that's the message that I want to give to anybody who is going through this kind of confusion, no matter what stage they're at. It's never too late to go back and find new hope and find your identity in things that won't eventually bring you to an early death. And really, to anybody who is experiencing any form of loss or any form of grief.
Chloe, your story breaks my heart. I have 2 daughters. One's 10, one's 13. And so they're kind of in that age where you got wrapped up in this. And that scares the hell out of me as a dad. But they're so beautiful. I just can't imagine anyone carving them up for, I don't know, what is this, a political thing? Is this an ideological thing? I mean, is this their own sort of religion?
Absolutely. I would argue it's all three, yes. It's a powerful political tool. It's completely based in ideology. There is no sound science behind any of this. But most of all, I think that it's an ongoing part of the spiritual battle that our country is going through, and it essentially is a religion of its own.
How did your parents get talked into allowing this?
They were told that it was going to be life or death for me, that the suicide rates in the transgender community are extremely high, particularly in children who don't get intervention as early as possible because they say, well, your body has to align with your internal sense of your gender and who you are, and that is what causes gender dysphoria, that it's like essentially like a physiological thing and like a condition that is like inborn and incurable.
Well, it sounds like you don't have much blame for them. You don't think that maybe they should have done more research and found out that these doctors were lying to them? Or?
At the time, there really was no additional information outside of the medical field.
There wasn't a Chloe
people
Cole.
People who were critical of transgenderism, especially in regards to children at the time, were very niche groups because so few people knew about the abuse that was actually happening. But my mom and dad, I don't blame them at all. I give them a lot of grace, especially for the way that they were emotionally manipulated by our doctors who knew better, who took an oath to do no harm, and gave me a treatment that did exactly that and tore apart my family in the process.
We're talking with Chloe Cole. She's a detransition advocate. And so now you're using your experience to kind of fill in that gap that your parents didn't have, that you didn't have when you were going through this. And you go around doing public speaking, a lot of which is at college campuses. You're going to be in town on Tuesday? Now, you were going to speak at a TP USA event at TCU, but that didn't work out. Are we ready to tell that part of the story yet?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So what's the TCU back and forth? Because they've released a statement today about your situation, but I want you to get your side out first.
Right. So in their statement, they said, well, we never had an event planned with them in the first place. We didn't cancel anything. And maybe technically that's true. But the thing about these colleges, having spoken at dozens of them over the years, that's the exact kind of tactic they use to bar speakers like me. They use all these technicality, they use all these rules to make it so that it's nearly impossible for Christians, for conservatives to hold events on campus. And that's exactly what they did here. They let us on for a few weeks, and we gave them several weeks' notice. They absolutely could have pulled an event together.
Oh, I don't know about the leading on part. Fill me in on that.
So they gave us the impression that we could have an event with the necessary resources and that we needed. At first we were expecting about 600 people in attendance, and now that there's so much attention being brought to this situation, it's a lot more. And they had multiple rooms that were available, that were open, that had that capacity or much more than that. And then eventually they said, well, you can't bring people from outside the school to this event. You can only have like a select number here. And then you can have this room that only has about 200, which is less than half than what we're expecting. And they just kept giving us these ridiculous rules that made it so that, well, we've decided to move the event off campus. And actually, there's a local Baptist church, Birchman Baptist Church, that has been very graceful in giving us their space and their church to host the event. And so we're still doing the event, and it's going to be on October 7th at 7 p.m.
Can you name another detransition advocate? Not you, Chloe. I'm talking to the people listening right now. And, I've been looking for someone like you. The trans issue is super close to me. In my radio career, I co-hosted a show with a guy who was trans. He would just dress up at nights and on the weekends, and he lived as a man during the day. And it was a sex thing. We'll just leave it at that. But there was no
transvestite.
Kinda. He thought about getting the top surgery. He thought about getting implants, but he would never do the bottom because you lose function. And let's just leave it at that. So
pretty smart choice not to.
No kidding. Man. He's no longer with us, by the way. That's a different story. Maybe we'll talk about that later.
I'm sorry to hear about that.
Yeah, it's terrible, actually. I don't want to bog down the show with it, though. But I think you're super important because you turn on the TV today, and there's so many people on the other side of your story. We now have trans characters all over TV. We have it in Good Girls. We have it in Umbrella Academy, in Star Trek Discovery, in the OA, in Shameless, Orange is the New Black, Money Heist.
You got Star Trek too? That's crazy.
Well, it's one of the 18 Star Treks. Was Star Trek Discovery. I haven't watched one episode of it. It was in Inventing Anna, 911 Lone Star, Faking It, The Good Doctor. I can keep going here. But for all the representation that community gets, Can you name one detransition character in any TV show in all of TV history?
Not one that exists. Not yet.
Not yet.
I'd like to change that.
What a great answer here. So, man, I was just telling you on the break, like, how do you do this? Isn't it horrible to have to go to these speaking events all across the country and relive this horrible experience?
Sometimes some days it's definitely harder than others, but for the most part, well, I end up having a lot of fun along the way. I've met a lot of people who I've had a lot of good times with, people who I am proud to stand by. And I mean, I'm on a mission. This is my calling, and I'm grateful that I have even the chance to fulfill it. And I've seen just the fruits of this movement that I'm blessed to be a part of come out so much over the years we've had 26 states passing protections for children against medical transgenderism, and even our sitting president right now has put forth executive orders, and the administration has been, and the federal government has been super involved in tackling this issue. And if it weren't for the normal, just everyday people coming out to tell their stories and talk about the things that they have seen in these clinics, then we wouldn't have gotten to this point. I think that, yes, there's a lot of tragic things that are happening in the world right now, but we still have so much to smile about.
I guess, man, that must be faith-based, because the optimism it's not based on that story. That's a terrible story. So you were just talking about how TCU kind of rope-a-doped y'all for a few weeks, pretending to book your event, and then they finally told you about a week or so ago that they're not going to be able to do it. Go. Well,
it's more so that they were giving us provisions that just were not going to work at all for our security needs, for our booking needs, especially with the amount of people who we were expecting to be there, which would include people from outside of the school, people in the local community who would want to attend the event.
TCU put out a statement today saying on September 18th, TCU successfully hosted a TPUSA event to honor the life of Charlie Kirk, who had previously spoken on TCU's campus to students in the community. That's a CYA move. Separate from this event, an outside party not affiliated with TCU invited an external speaker, to appear on our campus October 7th. The student chapter of TPUSA, Turning Point, Charlie Kirk's outfit, then requested that TCU host the event, the October 7 event, for 7 to 1,000 people. The requested space was already booked with another student event. We explored options, notified the group September 25th. A secure space was not available given the short notice, but we offered to find another date or space for the event. TCU never canceled this event as it was never booked. So why not just say, all right, well, let's do it a different day. Just give us an event and call their bluff.
Well, I wouldn't really be able to speak to that because I'm not the person who is organizing the event. That would be more so a question for the people working at the chapter and for the people working as staff at the school. But it really is a date that works best for me because I already have so much on my plate. I already have so many events at the school, I already have so many events for the semester that are lined up.
So I noticed, did you know it's Pride Month at TCU? Did you see this yet?
They have another Pride Month?
Bro, this is getting passed all around. I guess June wasn't enough. Well, look, to be fair, TCU's campus is pretty vacant during June, so you can't just let it slip. I guess 1 month isn't enough. So this is what's being passed around on Twitter under your post here. Pride Month at TCU. They're doing it again in October. Let's go through some of the events that they're hosting. You want to hear some of this, Chloe?
Sure.
All right.
I mean, I already know they're hosting one, I think, today, right?
Yeah, today at 1 p.m. So it might still be happening right now. They're having Why Do We Celebrate Pride at the Intercultural Center, October 7th, the date of your event. At 2 p.m., you can go to the Intercultural Center for TCU Ally One-on-One. And then the week after that, they have Pride in Your Relationships Week, and then Pride Picnic, and then the LGBT TEA with Trans Trailblazers on October 17th. TCU Ally 102 on October 23rd. On October 30th, they have Out and On Mute, a silent disco for the LGBT community at the BLUU Ballroom.
What's the point of a silent disco?
That's actually kind of cool, where you have the wireless headphones and then you're all listening to the same music, but no one can hear it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that's
interesting.
But I can't go because I'm straight. So yeah.
Well, it's really interesting that they're having so many Pride-related events.
Well, I didn't even get through the list. There's one more. On Halloween, they're having the Pride Month Cultural Cuisine at the Intercultural Center at 11:30 a.m. Bro, they're ditching Halloween for this.
I mean, do you think that's their holiday, right? Because like they like to dress up and play pretend.
All right, don't get me in trouble here. So,
am I allowed to say that?
You're allowed to say whatever you want. I have an employment on the line here. So let's talk about the event that's happening on Tuesday. You're still having an event. It's just not going to be on TCU campus, and a local church reached out to host it.
Yeah, it's the Birchman Baptist Church, and they've been awesome to work with. They and the other, there's a group hosting. I just got a new phone, so I can't check all the details on it, unfortunately. I really wanted to give a shout out to of course, not just the church and to the Turning Point chapter, but there also is another group, I think called the Forge Room, actually. And they all have just been working together tirelessly to put all this together and make everything work in spite of the circumstances.
All right, so if you have just one message that you want to get out to kids who are going through this or thinking about going through this, or parents who have kids who are kind of questioning their situation at this phase of their life, what would you tell them?
If you're a young person who is experiencing these feelings of confusion, of incongruence with your body and with your identity, especially in regards to your sex, of either being male or female, I completely understand how difficult it is. It was something that I have grappled with for years, but you don't have to give in to the lies. You don't have to give in to the confusion that you're experiencing. There is hope for you. There are ways to find your identity and to find happiness with yourself that don't involve living and going down a path of experimental, lifelong medication. All right, it's ultimately going to do you better to really introspect, to look at where exactly these feelings are really coming from. Because the issue is not your perfectly healthy, developing body. It is internal. It's psychological, and I would argue, as a Christian, oftentimes spiritual. And it's going to be, while it might be a lot more difficult in the moment, you have to go the long way. You have to play the long game in order to truly become happy with yourself. And it does not come from your identity does not come from what you call yourself or what clothes you wear. It comes from the things that you do for your community, for your family, for the people around you, and to make the world a better place.
Continuing for one more segment with our detransition advocate, Chloe Cole, who had a little headbutt with TCU, but the show will go on. Again, this happening Tuesday, October 7th, Birchman Baptist Church in West Fort Worth. Who needs to go to this? What is this event for?
Well, the reason why I chose a university to speak at is because I feel like this really is an issue of our time, especially in my generation. We are the ones who are being affected by it the most. And we are also the new generation of adults, so we have to be equipped to really deal with these issues going forward in our culture and in our personal lives. Because, I mean, a lot of us, we're going to affect the culture, not just within our own personal everyday conversations and in our classrooms, but also we are going to be the future doctors, future mothers and fathers, future lawyers, future lawmakers. And in order to really properly activate on this and do what's right going forward, we have to be informed on just what is happening. But I also, at these university events, it's not just for people my age. It's for people within local communities to be able to come by and hear stories like mine, to hear from perspectives like mine about what is happening in our culture right now.
Well, your story's horrible. I mean, the questioning at 11, the hormones at 13, the double mastectomy at 15, and here you are just being a little ray of hope out there. I mean, just indefeatable here. And you might even have a law named after you. Tell me about Chloe's law.
Yes, so the Chloe Cole Act was introduced into Congress, actually, on the House floor, and it's in I believe the Commerce Committee right now, and they're going to hopefully be having hearings on it soon, and it should be pretty straightforward process going into the Senate. But it seems though currently our federal government has some more pressing matters to attend to, what with the shutdown happening. Yeah. But they plan to get going on this pretty quickly, and I'm really excited about it because what this bill does is it's going to ban these treatments for children under the age of 13 or under the age of 18 across the country, and it's going to make it so that there is recourse for those of us who have been harmed, because currently in a lot of states the statute of limitations on lawsuits and on legal action for children who have, or for young people who have been hurt as children in the gender clinic system, it makes it nearly impossible for any of us to achieve justice. And the reason why we need a law like this on the federal level is because, yes, we've had about half the United States passing laws to protect children, but unfortunately not all of them are comprehensive. And we still have the other half of the United States that is going full force in the opposite direction, facilitating more children, more families going down this path and being torn apart and being harmed.
So the doctors who did this to you, the therapists, the monsters who just carved up a beautiful young girl, are they still out doing this to other kids today? Yes.
I believe my doctors are still working and still working with transgender patients and perpetuating this harm. But I have decided that I've decided to enter legal action with them. I filed a lawsuit after my 18th birthday, and for years the case was just not really moving very quickly because, well, the legal system is already a very painstakingly slow process. But of course, Kaiser Permanente, my healthcare provider, was trying to bury my case under a binding arbitration to make it so that the truth around what happened to me and what has happened to thousands of other children under their care would never come to light. But a recent development has happened, and it's been determined that we are very likely going to go to court. So I'm very excited. I'm very nervous going forward, but I'm very hopeful in what is to come of this.
All right, real quick, Greg on Facebook said you shared some of your faith-based battles in a documentary from Focus on the Family called Truth Rising. I've never even heard of that, and I am a fan of Focus on the Family. Tell me about some of the other work that you've done already.
Yes, so I've been speaking out since I was 17 years old, and I primarily started out by speaking on legislation and helping to pass the laws across the country that are protecting children from transgender treatments. But I also speak at medical conferences. I work with groups like Do No Harm Medicine on these laws and at medical with the medical system on this. And I also do a lot of work speaking at universities and with youth-oriented groups such as Turning Point USA and Young America's Foundation.
All right, Chloe, you speak well. Maybe you should go into radio after all this.
Well, all right, you say I should go into radio. Somebody earlier told me that I should probably run for something. So I don't know. I've got a few options to consider.
Right on. All right, well, we'll find her online, Chloe Cole. She's great on Twitter. She's got a bunch of good videos on YouTube. You can go see her Tuesday, October 7th at the Birchman Baptist Church in Fort Worth. Thank you so much for your time and your work. You're pretty inspirational, Chloe.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time.